everyone. Happy Sunday and welcome to the special live episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation channel. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by my better half on this show, Laura Kelly. How are you, Laura?
I'm amazing. I feel like I still have that celebration glow about me. So I'm feeling amazing. I'm still going to just be riding this high of celebration for like probably until the next one. So like 10 more months and then I get a new high.
How insane is that? Less than a year later, we're gonna do it all over again in London, and I'm definitely planning on going, and hopefully still getting a media badge. But I'll be there one way or another because you can't resist going to Star Wars Celebration. You can't resist going to it in London, which as some of you know from New Hope, that's where the first film was shot in England. So you want to kind of be there and get back in touch with the roots, and it'll be the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, I think, next year. So that's going to make it even more exciting to be there.
Return of the Jedi, but
Return of the Jedi. Sorry about that. Yeah. So that's going to be even more exciting. What do you think?
Oh God, yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that also means like we get the From a Certain Point of View book for Return of the Jedi, and like we'll get maybe like more, I don't know, Ahsoka footage at that point, and maybe some of this like this John Watts show, Skeleton Crew. Maybe we'll get something from that. Like,
surely.
Oh God, there's already there's so much in development right now. Like, there's already going to be so much more they can show us. I can't wait.
Do we get a Mark Hamill appearance? Do we dare I think?
I would think he'd be there. Was he? God, that's right. He wasn't there for the celebration, was he?
Wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Interesting. I didn't even notice.
I met Nathan a couple of times.
Nathan was there. Okay. Yeah. I would love to see Mark Hamill show up again, but that's really funny that I honestly didn't notice he was coming.
Or
wasn't there?
Oh, is a George Lucas sighting a possibility? I mean, I'm throwing it out there. I mean,
I don't know. I'm like, how many houses do you think the man has? Like, do we think he's got a house in London? Like, he'll probably be there. Like, you would think that when it's in Anaheim, like that would be close enough. But I don't know. I don't know what his deal is. I don't know where he's at.
I'm just saying that'd be the perfect one to bring him to. That would be a lot of fun to see him coming back and bringing Billy D probably back. I mean, it would be nice to whoever's still alive and hanging out with us to come back and hang out for Return of the Jedi. That would be a lot of fun for sure. But yeah, we're going to get into so many things here. We're going to talk about our experiences at Star Wars Celebration, what we saw, what we got to experience there on the ground floor, on the ground level there, for those of you who maybe didn't get a chance to go. We're also going to talk about all the big news that came out of Star Wars Celebration that we're very excited about. And we're going to get into Kenobi, that episode 3 that dropped here just a few days ago. And of course, the first 2 episodes dropped while we were there at Celebration, but this is the episode that everyone is talking about and looking forward to the 4th episode coming out only 3 days from now, really a couple of midnights from now. It is going to be coming out for people to consume and watch, and for all you reaction people to start making your videos at midnight. It's going to be insane. Good luck with all of that. And please remember, the Streamlabs and SuperChats are open. We are live, so send in your questions, your thoughts, your comments. Let's have some fun talking Star Wars. And Laura, as I mentioned, and please hit a like on this video. Laura, as I mentioned here, Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a big, big part of Star Wars Celebration. I was there for the Lucasfilm panel. I was there to see Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen walk out, Moses Ingram, Deborah Chow, Kathleen Kennedy, everybody involved with this. And then we got invited to go see the first 2 episodes at the auditorium. I didn't take advantage of that because then they ended up dropping it at 9 p.m. that night for those of us who were here on the West Coast. So now we go into episode 3. There were some issues people felt about the first 2 episodes, but episode 3 drops. So please tell me where you're at right now, halfway through the first season, or maybe the only season of Obi-Wan Kenobi, as we look at the 4th episode coming out in just a couple of days.
I mean, overall, I am fully on board. I am loving it so much. A lot of these like nits that people have are kind of mystifying to me. I have my own little nits here and there, but there's nothing at all that is stopping me from just getting the most immense joy out of this show. And I have to say, like, I really like Moses Ingram's character, Reva. Like, people are just like, oh my God, like, she's so mean and so evil. Like, the actress is great, but I hate this character. And I'm like, I love this character. I love her so much. And she seems so complex. And she's the one that I'm looking forward the most to seeing like where they take her character and how they let her story unfold and evolve. And if maybe we get to see something like post season 1 of this show. Potentially we get a second season of I don't know. They said limited series, but you never know.
Right.
But overall, I'm really liking it. The couple little nits that I have overall are like pretty minor things, and they're things that I've kind of gotten over as I've viewed the episodes more than once. I think I've watched each of them at least 3 times at this point, and I notice those things less and less when I watch them. So I'm very much looking forward to joining you guys, you and the Geek Buddies, to come back and talk Kenobi. It's my own scheduling that has kept me from being there for episodes 1, 2, and 3, but I'm excited to hopefully be there with you guys for 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I have to say, I am 100% on board with the series after this last episode. The first 2 episodes, I was a little like, okay, it's a little bit, we're sliding into a little bit of Nickelodeon in certain moments with them running around trying to catch her in the woods in that first episode. But overall, when I saw the chemistry between Obi-Wan Kenobi and the young Leia and their interactions and their conversation, especially after this episode when they were talking about her father, like those moments were so reminiscent of what he's going to do with Luke all these years later in A New Hope, which we've seen multiple times. To have this moment with Leia was a nice little gift. And of course, that actress is just killing it as Leia. She is like the secret weapon of the show. And I've enjoyed the kind of older than her years approach to Leia that I really appreciate. And yes, Moses Ingram really stepped up to the plate after this 3rd episode. I felt like much more involved in the character, much more interested to see where we're going. You got shades of a man taking credit for a woman's approach to things. Like there was a nice little subtle thing at that I really enjoyed between her and the brother there. And also what we're seeing here with Vader. And I liked Vader showing up. I liked the clumsy, awkward battle between them. I saw some people saying it should be more epic, more glorious. It should be on this greatest stage. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Star Wars fan said that? No way. There's no way any Star Wars fan would ever say that.
It's odd to me because I'm like, we're not there yet. He is building towards that battle. He is a man in crisis, in flux right now. So he did his best just to survive. And Vader was able to get a little measure of revenge. And yes, he waits to fight another day because this isn't the impulsive, arrogant, aggressive Anakin anymore. This is a Vader that's had 10 years to pursue Kenobi, and he's kind of deeper into the Sith, deeper into the philosophy. He's much more calm. He knows there'll be another day, so he lets it go. So, and we're now hyped up to see where this goes next. And I'm very curious for those people like me who thought Reva was going to turn good. After this episode, I don't know if 100% believe that anymore. But let's talk about the name drop here. Quinlan Voss, what are we getting from this? Laura Kelly, are we seeing a live action Quinlan Voss, or was this just a little tease for us Star Wars fans?
No, I think we are. I think it's inevitable because, we still haven't, there's a couple of these cast members that were, announced way back when, and we haven't seen them shown up on screen yet. And I remember looking at that, and there was like Alice and I were talking about this on Force Toast a few weeks ago, and we had the thought, what if Quinlan Voss shows up in this show? We know he's still alive. We don't know what he's up to. It would be great. It would be a great opportunity to see him. And there are, I think, are like 2 cast members that I'm like, they could potentially be playing him. So you also, this about me. I am a massive Dark Disciple fan.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite Star Wars books. Maybe like, it's definitely my top 3 favorite Star Wars books. So I love this character, and I love the possibility that we might get Quinlan Voss on screen. I mean, like, think about all the possibilities of the ways we could go with this character. I mean, they could bring him back, immediately kill him. I would hate that, but it's an option. They could do it. They could also, I'm like, if that whole like appearance is successful, we could spin it off. We could keep it going. Like, the possibilities are endless, and I'm so excited about the possibility of him coming back. What were your thoughts when you first heard this?
I mean, when I first heard the name, because I mean, to me, Quinlan Voss doesn't exist without a side Ventress. Like the second you say Voss, Ventress is the next thought I have. So when he said the name, I was like DiCaprio in that meme. I was like, oh, he was pointing at the thing like, oh my God, now where are we going to go with this? You opened the door, you said it. By saying it, it's canon. By saying it, it exists in live action. It's in some area, in some place in this universe of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, he exists in live action. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this? I want to see this possibility down the road. And is this something that kind of helps him reconnect back into what he had initially began as this disciple of Qui-Gon Jinn, as this Padawan, as this Jedi of the Council here, and all he's gone through. Now that he's disillusioned and lost, is Quinlan Vos going to come in here and help remind him? Because every episode he's slowly being reminded of the resistance, of the rebellion, and certainly this past episode with Indira Varma's character, we're seeing him like realize, oh yeah, people are moving on and still fighting, Ben. I know you're sitting in Tatooine wallowing in all you've lost, but people have to pick up and go on and fight and don't want to be subjugated by this empire. So it's time for you to get back in the game, kid. So it's like, I loved seeing that. And I wonder if Quinlan's going to be another one who kind of shakes him out of these doldrums and gets him back on the path, on the Jedi way, shall I say. Yeah.
I hope so. And yeah, you're right. Tala, Indira Varma was definitely playing that role in this episode. And I talk about another character I absolutely love. And I hope we see a lot more of her. And again, another one that I really kind of hope survives the series, but a big question mark whether or not that's going to happen. But yeah, I think, little Leia is one of those things where at first I was like, she does not sound like a 10-year-old, and I find that kind of annoying. Like, they couldn't have made the character like maybe a few years older, set this a couple years later. Like, it just would have made a little bit more sense. But I mean, when you go back and think about like what a spark like Carrie was and what Leia was and what she brought to the role, I'm like, it all lines up. It all checks out when you really start to think about it. So I think it's perfect. I do think that one thing that they're not acknowledging enough at this point in the show, we're talking a lot about Padme and we're comparing her a lot to Padme. And I love that Padme's getting sort of some of this recognition through Leia in this show. But Leia is so much like Anakin. I mean, there's all these great little moments where like she goes to run away from Obi-Wan, I think in episode 2, and she like immediately stops and she's confronted by some huge alien or something, and he has to come up to her and just be like, could you just not run away? That would be really great, actually. And it's that sense of sort of impatience. I'm like, that all comes through and it all feels very much like Anakin. So I like that there's a lot of Padme talk in this, but I would love to also just acknowledge like this is Anakin's child too. And she's a little bit of a mess because of that.
And certainly we see that, later on in life in the Bloodline novel, her kind of the universe coming to terms with the fact that her dad is Vader. So that's so interesting. And when Luke tells her, there in the Empire Strikes Back, there's not this big shock. She almost is like, yeah, I kind of sense that. So it's like, okay, where does that come from? So are we going to get hints of that here as these conversations progress? Because as I said earlier, that moment, that scene where they're having a back and forth about her father and how she wants to meet him and she wonders what he was. And then you cut to her later on, she's seeing Vader coming. It's what a nice little change there in terms of understanding, do you want to open that door? Like really realizing for us as fans, oh my God, we don't want her to open that door just yet. So going to be very curious. But you make an excellent point, Laura. There's certainly a lot of allusions to Padme. There needs to be Kenobi maybe dropping little mentions about her dad and what have you, and having almost like a repeat of A New Hope going, well, yeah, that's what your dad would have done, or that's what your dad did. And I wonder if he's going to walk that path with her where he hides the truth from her all the way through there. I mean, obviously he does, but like what allusions is he going to make that kind of could be interpreted one way or another? I wonder if they're going to walk that line with him for sure. What do you anticipate as we kind of step away from this? Because we don't spend too much time on Kenobi. What do you anticipate is coming here from Kenobi over these next 3 episodes?
Well, I think they've paid a lot of fun little homages to The Force Awakens, so I'll be curious to see what else we're bringing in from that movie throughout episodes 4, 5, and 6 of this show. Vader, I thought, sounded amazing in this last episode, so hopefully I would love to see more Vader action. I had this talk with Alice today, and she's like, I don't think we're going to see any more Vader. I think that's it. And I'm like, no way. There's no way. I'm like, I think we have to see more. And I just want to see, like, they've done such a good job with him so far. So I just really, really would love more Vader content. I think the Quinlan Vos mention is inevitable, that we'll get to see him on screen at some point. If maybe not him, some other Jedi, maybe that's familiar to us in some way. Maybe more than one. Like I really, I'm kind of open to all possibilities, but Quinlan Vos is like a very exciting thing that I want.
Yeah.
And then I'm really kind of hoping that we get some more of these sort of like, we're getting a lot of like the audio flashbacks. Some of it we're seeing, some of it we're not.
Yeah,
But what I would really like to see is maybe just some little snippet from the Clone Wars animated series brought into live action. If that's a
Ooh.
flashback form, and maybe we get Obi-Wan in like his white clone armor or his white Clone Wars armor.
Yeah.
And just getting to see Hayden's actual face, like maybe flashing back to that time. Like they're just little things. I'm not trying to discount what animation has done for Star Wars, because I love the Clone Wars and I love Star Wars animation, but to like just take advantage of the fact that you have Hayden Christensen's face. Like it would be nice to actually like see it more than just the one little snippet that we got during Obi-Wan's hallucination in this episode. So those are a couple of the things on my wish list. I wanted to point one other thing out too, but I'm curious to see what else you want to see. I think in between the trailer and the teaser, we have seen every single shot that was included in those, except for two.
Okay.
One of them is Ned B firing on stormtroopers.
Right.
It's a real quick little shot, so I wonder if we'll maybe get that in this next episode. And then we haven't seen Reva marching through the Inquisitorius with her saber lit and the Purge troopers behind her. That scene hasn't shown up either, but I think we've seen everything else. So those trailers, the rest of what we're going to see is going to be very unfamiliar to us. We're all going to be in new territory, and I can't wait.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I want to hear what you're anticipating getting out of these last three.
Look, I respect Alice like crazy. I know she knows so much about Star Wars. I have a feeling that we are. I feel like Kathleen Kennedy seemed to tease that there would be two confrontations between Vader and Kenobi. And I'd be very hard pressed to believe that they had this huge press tour for Hayden Christensen and bringing him back and all this. And it's just this is all we get, this kind of clumsy battle from Kenobi fighting off Vader because he's not 100%, because he's rusty and he's not 100% dialed back into being ready for battle. So I would be surprised that this is the end of Vader's appearance in Kenobi. So I think we're heading towards a final battle in the last episode between them, a final battle of the series between them. And that will be what they get referenced in A New Hope. And I think it's going to be interesting to see. A lot of people are thinking we might get that moment like we got in Clone Wars, like we got in Rebels, where we see half his mask kind of tore off and see Hayden's face or whatever. But I saw someone comparing Hayden's Gate in the prequel trilogy to Hayden's Gate in the Kenobi series, and it's very clearly Hayden in the costume. At least to me, it seems like it's Hayden in the costume. So I love that. So we're going to get one more. Are we done with Kumail Nanjiani's character? I don't know if we're done 100% with that. That seems like such a small part to play in this. So I wonder if that's going to come back. I see people speculating Mace Windu. I've seen Ahsoka Tano out there as a possibility. So my mind is wide open to all these possibilities. But I know something strong has to happen that starts to move Kenobi in a quicker fashion, because we only have 3 episodes, back towards embracing being a Jedi again, back towards understanding what his mission is here, back towards the Qui-Gon assignment that he was given to train this guy, and if not him, to train Luke, kind of to make up for messing up training with Anakin if he did mess it up. And we're totally getting Qui-Gon. And there's no way to mention him like 3,000 times that he doesn't show up, right, Laura?
There's no way. I'm like, the first second that we saw the first second of this episode or of this show in episode 1, I'm like, oh, we're definitely getting Liam Neeson in this show. That would be like the biggest upset, I feel like, if they didn't bring him in live action form in some way. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely agreed. And Brian Ward is in here. Thank you, Brian. Good to see you, brother, man. He's saying, I hope we get a Clone Wars flashback. Absolutely, Brian. Would love to get a Clone Wars flashback. I think I said that during the review we had with Geek Buddies in the first 2 episodes review we did at Star Wars Celebration. I said I would like to see that as well, like a couple of flashback scenes through scenes we'd already seen in animation. What could we see? Will we flash back to the Anakin and the whole situation that he went through with the tree and the all of that? Will we get that? Will we get a little more here with Kenobi confronting some things? Will we get flashbacks with him and Hayden, maybe a de-age Hayden, and on some kind of mission together that we've seen in Clone Wars? All of those things are possible, so it's exciting. And I don't think we're getting Darth. Do you think we're getting Darth Maul? Do you think we're getting Darth Maul in any way, shape, or form? I feel like we're done with Darth Maul, aren't we?
No, this is not his story. I need him to stay out of this story. Like, he's got to be doing something else at this point. I can't remember where this is set in relation to Solo, but I'm like, isn't he just running Crimson Dawn? That's not it's a separate story. Let's keep it separate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just me.
Exactly. We shall see. All right. Well, there you go. That's our kind of quick discussion of episode 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Of course, it's episode 4 coming out Tuesday at midnight. So put that on your schedule. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen, for that. We are not that far away from it. But let's move on to Star Wars Celebration. Laura, we were both very fortunate enough to be a member of actual panels at Star Wars Celebration as well. So that's going to be part of our conversation. What's your feeling now? It's Sunday. Literally, this was where the last day of celebration last week. I can't believe it's already been a week. Talk to me now about how you're feeling about your entire experience and all you saw here at Star Wars Celebration 2022 in Anaheim.
I think it would have been I had such high expectations going into the celebration.
Mm-hmm.
It would not have been a surprise to me at all if I'd been like, you know what, my expectations were too high. I think I went in I was too overwhelmed. It was too much. I just wasn't able to take it all in. But like, that is not the case at all. I loved it so much. I was like in my element the entire time I was there. It was just the best. I love celebrations and I talked it up so much. And everything I talked up, I felt 100%. There's no part of me that like was underplaying that by any means. So I immensely enjoyed myself. I am shocked we're getting another celebration in less than a year. I cannot wait. I love the possibility that we're going to get, I love the idea that we get to go to Europe for this one. It's been, since 2016 that they did Celebration Europe and I didn't get to go to that one. So I'm very excited. And I loved that, we were in a warm environment. The weather was perfect. It was like very hot in Chicago while I was gone. It was like 75 sunny the entire time we were there. And it was just perfect. 2019, I didn't get into any of the panel lotteries, but I think I still ended up being able to sort of weasel my way into some of them. Yeah. This time I won 3 out of the 4 lottery days. And so I got to actually be in the room when it happened. And it was, man, we'll get into Saturday when I was in the Mando Plus panel because oh my God, I'm not in top 5 moments of like my entire life was getting to like be in that room that day for that time period. Like we'll get into it. But this was, my 3rd celebration. So I'm really curious how it was for you because this was not your first con, but your first Star Wars celebration. So how did it kind of compare? What did you think? What are you going to do differently? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's fascinating because I mean, and just for the record, Laura and I met for the first time in person a week ago today at lunch before I left to go on the road. And Laura, you guys can grasp that she loves Star Wars in person. It's so obvious how much she's obsessed and loves Star Wars. So that was a fascinating thing to experience how bone deep her love of Star Wars really goes here as she gets excitedly into talking about all the things that she was able to experience. So for me, I'll tell you the truth, I didn't know what to expect. I was excited to go. I stayed in a nice hotel, so I was able to relax. That was walking distance, really easy walking distance to the convention. Coming in the first day, I was really blown away on Thursday by how many people were really there and incredibly excited. And I've been to the Anaheim Convention Center for a D23 years ago, and so there was shades of that were a little similar. But seeing the joy on people's faces, feeling the energy in the room that people were excited to be doing this again after so long, it was great. And then walking the floor and seeing all the different artwork, seeing all the different clothes and merchandise, seeing the Her Universe panel, seeing that LG had a panel, LG OLED had a panel for some reason, or a stand rather. They were selling TVs, their TVs there. All the incredibles. There was Star Wars fudge, ladies and gentlemen. I got myself some Star Wars fudge from one of the booths there just to kind of try it out as well. It was incredible. Star Wars Visions was represented. All the animated stuff was represented. All the live action stuff was represented. And people were there having a great time having conversations. I saw a young woman going around handing out tickets to people for violating. She was dressed up and she was saying she was from Human Resources and she was writing people up. It was brilliant. All of that stuff. And you saw the bantha that was there with the tongue. You saw all the different things that were available. And it was just a great experience day by day. But for me, I had to take it in doses, A, because of the COVID scare, and 2, because I didn't want to overwhelm myself to the point where I was exhausted and then didn't want to come back the next day. So I took it in bits and pieces and just walking around, savoring everybody, enjoying it, and then going into the panels and enjoying people's work. That's the one regret I have, is I didn't go to enough panels. I wanted to go to more panels, and not just the big ones, the smaller ones, because that's where you really see people's human joy at Star Wars and why this franchise matters so much to people. And I'm now very firmly in the camp that I'm going to bring a camera and a microphone next year for Star Wars Celebration, and I'm going to interview people the whole time I'm there, and maybe even create a mini documentary about the whole experience, because I really just love how much people love this franchise, and seeing the joy across the board was great to see overall. But I took it at my pace, so I was able to walk away from it feeling good on Sunday, even though I felt like I missed a couple of panels that I could have gone to. Overall, great experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, that's always, as long as it is, and it was 5 days in Chicago, I'm like, there's still just not enough time in the day to get to everything you want to get to. And you really do have to you have to take care of yourself. So like, there was the Doug Chang panel, the design panel, is something I didn't get to in 2019. I was hell bent on getting there this year. And I just couldn't swing it, because at that point, I think it was like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And that is the time of day, every day that I was at Celebration, that I crashed. And I had to go back to my room, and I had to decompress and recharge and take a nap, and sometimes change and shower, and then go back and just keep start it all over again. Because, unfortunately, a lot of there were a lot of later panels that I guess it's fortunate and unfortunate, because they didn't conflict with things that I wanted to see earlier in the day, but they were so late in the day that I was just exhausted while I was there. So getting to see some of those evening publishing panels was great, but I'm like, if you could have moved it back like an hour, that would have made all the difference in the world. It's just, they're long days. So I'm glad that you you took it in stride, and you kind of you didn't push yourself too hard to stay for every single thing and try and run around like a crazy person trying to make every single panel you wanted to make. It sounds like you did it right for your first one.
For me, yes. And I took a lot of your advice, even though I initially, I admitted this to Laura when we had our lunch. I initially doubted a couple of pieces of Laura's advice, but she wasn't wrong. I mean, because that convention center is big, ladies and gentlemen.
It is.
And there wasn't as many booths as I thought there was going to be. I'll say that right off the bat. I thought it was going to be chock full. And there was a lot, but there were certainly long gaps of walking in between certain sections in the convention center. And that's where you were having a lot of your endurance comes into play. Your endurance really comes into play at that point. So this whole idea of prepping yourself by walking every day, like an hour and a half every day before the convention, I will now tell you, I'm evidence of that is absolutely what you need to do, because I don't know how many times I would walk to just get to a booth, and I'm just going to stick around here for a little bit before I catch my breath and walk into more other things. So you've got to do all those kinds of things for sure to stay in shape. Yeah, I did, but I'm very comfortable with how I did it. And I took the Saturday and took a little bit of time by myself, like 4 hours in the hotel room. I watched a documentary and just kind of relaxed a little bit. And then went out and hung out with some people. And so it was just nice. It was a nice, chill approach to Star Wars. And I know next year I'm going to be much more aware of what panels to go to, how to do the coverage, because that's the thing that I really learned here, is that as soon as a panel is done, either start doing coverage right after that panel, right outside the room, or head to the hotel room and record your coverage immediately, because fans want to know immediately what you thought about everything you saw. So those are the things I learned as a YouTube person, a YouTube creator, that I need to be a little more aware of going into a convention. So in that way, I learned a lot for sure.
Perfect. That's great. You get your lessons learned, but you still had a great time, and that's what's important.
Absolutely.
So I want to hit some of the panels that you were able to make. And I want to talk a little bit about what did you like? What were some of your initial reactions? What did you, miss that you would have liked to have seen? The great thing is, somebody pointed this out in the chat, that they did the Doug Chang panel in particular. They did live stream a lot of those.
Yes.
I can go find them on YouTube and watch them later, and I fully intend to do that. This has a week of recovery sense of trying to maybe not do as much Star Wars stuff, but I will get to it. It was a long week of a lot of Star Wars stuff. But I want to hit Thursday to start, because you got to go to the Lucasfilm showcase. Unfortunately, that was the one that was the one lottery I didn't win, and that's all right. Because in the place of it, I got to go see the Cantina cast interview Claudia Gray. They just spent an hour gushing about the Jedi of the High Republic.
That's
so
awesome.
I was very much in my element while I was there. My first panel of celebration was perfection. But tell me about the showcase, how it went, what you learned, what you loved.
It was interesting because there was a lot of confusion for me as a member of the media with that badge. Do I get access to these panels? Do I not? Do I have to be in the lottery? And I reached out to a couple of publicists and eventually got the answer that, yeah, you had to put your name in the lottery to get into these things, whether you're media or regular. So I didn't know that. And so when I was walking, I had no expectation that I was going to get into the Lucasfilm panel. And a young woman there who was herding everybody into line, I said to her, media, do we get in? She's like, unless you have a QPR code, you don't get in. And I was like, oh, okay, guess I'm not getting in. But I ran into my friend Griffin Schiller, who knew someone over there. I think Sharonda was her name. And so he was on the phone with her. And so I just kind of followed his lead, and we were able to flash our media badges to the guards or the security people who maybe weren't too aware of things. And we were able to get in. So that's how I got into that panel, through subterfuge and a little bit of ingenuity and some just aggressive, believe in myself, get through the door type of thing. Media. And I got in, and of course, Marshall Weinbaum is a friend of mine, so I was able to use his name to get into the press section, and boom, I mean, literally 5 minutes before this thing started. That's how crazy it was, and I was so excited and got to sit down, and all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, here comes Duel of the Fates live on stage, which I posted on Instagram yesterday, the video of that. It was incredible. What a great way to start. And boom, we were rolling, because out comes Hayden Christensen, out comes Ewan McGregor, and that tore the roof off the place. I mean, Ewan got a great pop. Hayden Christensen got a pop. That was like The Rock coming into WrestleMania pop. It was massive how big the pop was. And of course, Ewan starting with hello there was really nice. But then Hayden Christensen saying, we're back. I thought that was genius to go that route. And they both look like they're just having the greatest time. And then, of course, Yvette Nicole Brown comes out and introduces Moses Ingram, Deborah Chow, Kathleen Kennedy. All of them come out to talk Kenobi. It was a great beginning. And as the panel went along, Andor, Willow, the announcement for Skeleton Crew with Jude Law starring in it, The Mandalorian Season 3, little kind of sizzle reel they showed us. And then as if we weren't already high enough, here comes John Williams to compose 3 pieces of music, including the Obi-Wan Kenobi theme for the first time anywhere live in front of us, then jumping into Duel of the Fates for a couple of minutes, and then boom, hitting us with the Indiana Jones theme. And who comes out? Harrison Ford, that crotchety old SOB, comes walking out and gets emotional talking about John Williams, which gets us all emotional. So, Laura, I mean, what an incredible panel to start Star Wars Celebration with. And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to have been able to get into that panel. And I remember at one point during the panel sitting around going, I'm destined to be here. It was my destiny to be here because of certain things happening in certain ways to get into this position. And I'm so happy that I was, one of those people destined to be in the room for this, to witness it. It was great. Yeah.
Like, isn't it incredible? Like, being in the room when it all is going down. I'm like, it just, like, there's no way to describe it. I can't describe it to people. Like, you can't put it into words. You just have to, like, be there for one of them. Mm-hmm. Like, getting to be in the room when, like, they did the Rise of Skywalker panel in 2019 was crazy. But, like, seeing, when we were kind of in sort of unknown at that point. And the fact that, we went into a lot of these panels kind of knowing what we were going to get to see. This was sort of a different year. Like, all right, we're like Mandalorian. We know we're going to get Mandalorian stuff. We know we're going to get Andor stuff. We like Willow and Indy was a surprise to me, but I don't pay as much attention to that. I was there for one purpose, and it was Star Wars. But like getting to see like John Williams conduct in like front of with a live orchestra, like that's insane. And it's just one of those things you won't get to experience unless you're there. You just have to be there, and you get that feeling of like camaraderie where you're just experiencing that thing for the first time in a room full of people who love that thing just as much as you do. And that energy is just insane. It's insane. It's perfect.
I'll say one thing, Laura. I was sitting next to 2 guys from Italy, and they were talking in Italian the whole time about the panel. So I even got an international like flavor perspective sitting next to those guys. because like John Williams, and you're hearing all this stuff, and it was great. It was so perfect, and they were as caught up with it as we were, and they were just having a great time talking all through it. And I was, just kind of listening and really savoring their joy. And I had 2 young ladies sitting next to me who were like really excited, typing away, covering stuff on their computer because they're impressed. So all of it was just a phenomenal experience. And you're right, being in that room, there's nothing like it. They can simulcast it anywhere they want to simulcast it, but the energy in the room is what you kind of sense and feel. And as all these things were coming out, it was great to see. And I do want to give a shout out real quick to Ronan Unchained, who said, I was the person who yelled to Harrison Ford, love you, Harrison. Yes, Ronan, I remember you did. And it stopped him cold, and he responded, which was great. So yeah, that was you. I couldn't believe it. That's awesome, Ronan. Glad you're in here. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Did he say I love you back, or did he say I know?
I think he said I know, and just kind of grumbled, keep going with and the funny thing he said is that Indiana Jones theme, he's so tied to it. They even played it while he was getting ready for his colonoscopy, which I thought was really funny of him to say that, of all things. So I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, Laura, we got the Andor trailer. Later you got to see what we got to see with the Mandalorian season 3 trailer. We got the Skeleton Crew news. We got the idea. We got the information that Andor is going to be 2 seasons, 12 episodes. Each season is going to lead us all the way up until right before the beginning of Rogue One. And we got some more information of Star Wars overall. We got an Ahsoka Tano video claiming that Rosario couldn't show up because she was shooting scenes. We were lied to because she certainly showed up 2 days later. So when you were hearing all the news popping out as you caught up, what was the thing that stood out to you? What was the thing that kind of really got you excited when you heard all the news from the Lucasfilm panel?
The Andor trailer was probably like my #1 priority when I came out of the room. And there were a bunch of people who had come from that panel and were waiting to get into the whatever was happening in the panel right after that I was in. And they were like, oh, did you see the Andor trailer? And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. No, like I'm high on the High Republic right now. Like I need to shift now my energy, and sat and watched it. And I just like all the amazing outfits that we got Genevieve O'Reilly in like these images, promotional images. And like, then you get to see it in the trailer, and we got to see, Petunia Dursley. I'm sorry, now I don't remember what the actress name is, but like all of these people that I was so excited to see in this trailer, we're getting all of this amazing content, this amazing like feel for what that show is going to be. And I feel like it's like everything I want it to be. It's going to be this like kind of dark-ish feeling, spy thriller that we were sort of promised. That's what they're selling to us at the moment. So I'm really excited about it. I think I remember, kind of hearing, all those people are going to get to go see like Kenobi. They're going to get to watch it early tonight, and we all have to wait. And people were all mad about that. And I'm just like, we're all going to see it eventually, right? Yeah. Like they're just going to see it like maybe like an hour or 2 before. It's like not a big deal. Yeah. We all going to get to see it eventually. I really wish they would just release that Mandalorian footage for everyone to see. I think they think that they're bringing this content to these panels and that it's like a special treat for all of us to get to see it, which it is. But the special treat is getting it to see it with everybody in the room at the same time and having that experience, maybe getting to see it a little farther in advance. Release it to everybody so we can talk about it. I've got in-depth notes of what we saw. We can talk about it if you want, because it's maybe some people would consider that spoilery, maybe not. But what we got on Saturday was an extended version of what everybody saw on Thursday when it came to the Mandalorian footage, which was awesome.
I echo your love of the Andor trailer. It was being in the room, especially with the buildup that Diego and Genevieve and everybody involved with the production, Tony Gilroy, like everybody there talking about it. I love how Tony was like, this is what's going to happen over the next 2 seasons. You can see Kathleen almost go like, what are you doing? And, but he just gave it all away. And it was so funny because Diego even said, oh, I guess we know now how it ends. And everyone's like, yeah, we all know how it ends, bud. So it was just like great to see that. And then, of course, hearing Diego talk about how much it means to him as a Star Wars fan, first and foremost, to be playing this character and then coming back to play this character and the story that he's going to tell. And certainly, as a Latino, as the son of immigrants, you can see the immigrant story in this trailer
Yes.
throughout. You know, you see the natives in that planet right from the beginning. See that Empire ship crashing or whatever. See them working in the fields that they're working in. They're wearing the same colors of like the rebellion later on, or the X-wing fighters that we see later on. So there's shades of that. Is that Andor's dad? Is that not Andor's dad? Who is that banging the drums there with the curlier the older man with the curlier hair? All of that you start, and then boom, him talking about they've gotten fat, the Empire's gotten fat, and then we see some of the richest shots we've ever seen of the Empire in that trailer. So yeah, this idea that this is like the Roman Empire now, we've moved past this idea that it's the Nazis. This is more Roman Empire type stuff, which I thought was really interesting. It gave me vibes of Spartacus, gave me vibes of that kind of approach to things. And then we see Genevieve O'Reilly, who is gorgeous in the trailer as Mon Mothma, and was gorgeous there with that blue dress as well, kind of talking about the political intrigue that she has to kind of be a part of and walk the line of. You know, they're watching me. All of that is so fascinating. And then at the end, getting that shot of Fiona Shaw, kind of mirroring what we got with Jyn Erso when she says, "This is a rebellion, right? I rebel." She said, "This is a reckoning." That's what you get with a reckoning. And you're like, wow, man, this is going to be awesome. And Laura, I got a feeling if they're investing 12 episodes, 24 episodes, essentially of 2 seasons, that they believe in this project a lot as well.
Exactly. Now, I want to clarify something. Did they say it's going to be only 2 seasons, or did they kind of imply like this is going to be at least 2 seasons? We've already renewed it for 2.
He said 2 seasons. The first season is going to be the 2 years, covering the 2 years where he kind of becomes this rebel. So from the angry kid who's mad at the Empire and trying to scrounge and survive to becoming a soldier in the rebellion. And the second season is going to cover the 4 years of time that leads right on up to the one scene before the beginning of Rogue One, just like Rogue One essentially led up to the beginning of A New Hope. That's what they're going to do with the second season. That's what Tony Gilroy was very clear about. 4 years in the second season are being covered of Andor's progression to this point. So it's fascinating.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's great. So when we were on the Kenobi part of the panel, did they kind of talk about any sort of like reveals or hints of what was coming with the show, or was it just kind of teasing like, you're gonna get the first 2 episodes tonight, yay? Like what was the energy there?
Yeah, it was really quick, and it was Yvette Nicole Brown just kind of interviewing them about their experiences, right? About Hayden, what it was like to come back, and they showed the Vanity Fair shot of Hayden swinging this lightsaber there. They talked to Ewan about what it was like to step back into this. It was all stuff you'd heard before, and then she brought Moses Ingram into the conversation. I thought Yvette did a great job of doing that because naturally she could get lost because not a lot of people know her. She's a new character in Star Wars, and you're seeing the return of these 2 actors into these iconic roles. So Yvette did a nice job of getting her to speak about what the experience has been like and what she's gone through and what she's loved about it. So it was just standard conversational stuff to get us hyped up for Kenobi. And then they said, you guys are going to get to watch the first 2 episodes ahead of everybody else. Just get a band when you leave, So that was basically it. And they spent much more time with the other stuff than they did with Kenobi. And I think because they knew they were on the precipice of it coming out and didn't want to ruin anything at all. But it seemed like Vader was going to be a bigger part of this series. So that's the vibe I got coming out of that panel. So I was not surprised to see him show up so quickly in the series at all.
Yeah. So really, you'll definitely be surprised if he doesn't show up again. But know, Brian Ward pointed it out earlier in the chat that that concept art that we saw of their supposed like rematch of the century didn't look anything like what we saw in episode 3. So odds are we're gonna get at least one more probably duel between the 2 of them, which is great. So moving on, sort of past the morning panel on Thursday. Because what happened shortly after that was something that has not happened to me in any Star Wars celebration or any con before, which is that the fire alarm went off.
Yes!
I was in the Lucasfilm publishing panel. I got in by the skin of my teeth, and then the fire alarm went off, and everybody had to leave. And I was very sad. Where were you when this happened?
Oh, I was walking the floor. I was seeing all the stuff and all the booths and taking it all in. And then I heard it, and I was like, oh, that's a Star Wars. I thought there was a Star Wars sound, from one of the ships or something that they were playing over the intercom for fun. And then people started to slowly figure out that it wasn't that it actually was the alarm, and then everybody started moving out. So at that point, since everybody was moving out, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just kept walking all the way back to the hotel for a little bit, and then came back later in the night to walk the floor a little bit more. But yeah, that's basically what happened with me. And then I saw your tweet that you were like, I finally got in this thing, and now they send me out on this damn fire alarm. I saw how frustrated you were with that.
Oh God, I was so mad. Like, it just was, that Twin Sun stage is not big enough. We had like so many different panels in there. I feel like I was only barely able to get in. But right after, so, you know, whatever was supposed to happen in that panel essentially got lost. So for anybody who was at any panel they really were dying to see at that time period, my thoughts are with you, because that was an unfortunate you know, incident that happened. But later that afternoon, I did get into the High Republic panel, and I wasn't able to get the like light speed reservation. So I was like number 5, like in line for standby to make sure I was guaranteed to get into the High Republic panel. That was number 1 on my list of all the panels I wanted to see. I wanted to make sure I got into that, and it was everything I wanted it to be. You know, we spent a little bit of time kind of, you know, living up phase 1, but there was a lot of, you know, preview of what phase 2 was going to be and showing some of that concept art and stuff. And I couldn't resist doing a live tweet of the panel. It was amazing. It was so fun. A lot of the stuff that they showed us was great. So it ended up getting me a lot more excited about phase 2 of the High Republic than I was leading up to it.
Coming out of that panel, do you sense that that's where they're going to start going? Do you sense like live action, animated wise? You know, there've been rumors about live action High Republic type approach series rather. Did you sense coming out of that panel that this is absolutely an area of Star Wars they're going to start exploring more aggressively, shall we say?
There was definitely one hint that was dropped at some point that was real subtle, where somebody was just like, oh yeah, you know, in whatever books and stuff that come out in the future, or whatever other medium we decide to go with. And I was like, say more right now, but they didn't. It was very brief, but it, like, we got just that little bit of a hint. And, you know, beyond like the video game that may or may not even be happening, there was hints that there could potentially be more to come. So that I've got my fingers crossed for that. Especially when we eventually circle back to phase 3.
Right, for sure. Let me see. We've got one super chat that came through here. Derek Johnson says, JEJ doesn't get his flowers for being Vader all these years. Without his voice, he's talking about James Earl Jones. Without his voice, Vader doesn't exist. You never see him on covers, red carpets. He's the most iconic villain of all time. What do you think will happen once that day comes? You mean that day? I imagine what you're saying, the day he passes. Which is a really, I mean, he's 91 years. I mean, him and John Williams are competing for who's going to outlive who and still be connected to Star Wars. I think it'll be absolutely devastating, because you're right. They did a way better mix of his voice this time around than they have in times past, where he has sounded his age. This one sounded just like original trilogy Vader, which was awesome. I mean, such a fantastic part here in Kenobi. What do you think, Laura? What do you think will happen? What do you think about him coming back through the voice? Or what do you think will happen once he does actually kind of walk away? You know?
Well, I'm thrilled that he came back and did the voice for Kenobi, because you're right. Like, whatever mixing or something they did in Rogue One, it did not work. And it worked so much better in Kenobi. So I was very, very pleased to hear him back. And, you know, the way that they also did this particular version of Vader in Kenobi was like, you know, Anakin in the prequels had like an American accent, and Vader had a very sort of British sort of vibe with his accent in the original trilogy. And they kind of are striking this really perfect balance of in between where he is in Kenobi. And I really appreciate that kind of attention to detail. I think that we are far enough advanced with our capabilities of being able to modulate people's voices that we would be able to replicate it pretty easily. That's not to say there's not immense value in having James Earl Jones still doing this, but you're right. You know, he might just want to walk away from all of it at some point, and who can blame the man? He's lived an extraordinary life and a very busy life, even just with Star Wars. But I think that, you know, even I listen to a lot of the audiobooks, and I'm like, there's decent amount of these narrators that can do a pretty decent Vader, which, you know, goes to show you that there are probably a lot of voice actors that can pull it off too, as long as you've got the ability to sort of mix and modulate it the way that you need to do. And you've got, you know, the best people in the world at Skywalker Sound doing that. So I'm not too worried about us losing the ability to have Vader in storytelling on screen or in audio form,
Yeah.
ultimately when James Earl Jones decides to step away. But I think, I think that maybe it might lose a little something of that something special knowing that it's not him.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the worst that could happen. What do you think?
Yeah, and it may be at the end of the day, Laura, that they have got him in a voiceover booth for the last few years, the last year or so, recording every word possible, so that they can do a mix of it down the road. Look, I mean, I play those EA Sports video games. It is mind blowing to me how these announcers say every single team across Europe and the United States in the multiple divisions of football, soccer that there are, and every player on every. So they're in there for a long time recording stuff. So I wonder if they've done that with James, where there are certain kinds of words or letters or whatever that they have recorded him doing now that they can modulate down the road. I don't know, but that would seem to be a smart move, and you go at his pace. And look, it's not like Star Wars doesn't have money to pay for sound booth space to make that happen. And maybe he comes in for an hour or two a day, does some words, rolls on out, And so there's a very strong possibility. Being a voiceover guy, I know that they've done that before in the past for other older actors, that they've had them record a string of words just in case down the road that they might want to use some of that. So that's certainly possible. But as you said, you're absolutely right. There are people who can imitate James Earl Jones. Go on TikTok. There are a number of people there who can do almost dead perfect imitations of James Earl Jones in his voice. So we won't be out of people who'll be able to do it. You just wonder how they're going to make that happen, what decision they make overall for sure. But yeah, but I'm not looking forward to that day in any way, shape, or form, for God's sakes. Let's see. We got a Streamlab that came through here. And please remember, the Streamlab Super Chats are open, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 153 of you watching us right now live. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to hit a like on this video. And if you enjoy the conversation, send in your questions, thoughts, and comments through Streamlabs or Super Chat so we can address them here on the show. Ronan Unchained said, "Hi, Laura and John. It was such an honor and pleasure to meet you both multiple times at my first celebration. Definitely. If you could watch one episode of any of the new upcoming TV shows, which one would you choose? Me, Ahsoka. Hope we can make it to Europe next year. I hope so as well." Laura, if you could watch one episode of any of the new upcoming, I think I have a guess for you, but please let people know, what would it be?
Man, we'll get into the way I lost my mind on Saturday. Like, my brain exploded. It's definitely going to be Ahsoka for me, even more so now than it was before. We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
absolutely.
It's Ahsoka for me. How about you? I'm going to guess Andor.
Yeah, it's Andor. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think I've looked forward to any Star Wars series the way any Marvel or Star Wars series like I've looked forward to Andor. I think that is going to speak to me on so many levels as a Star Wars fan, as a human being, as a Latino, culturally. I think there's a lot that's going to go on here. Plus my love of history, because it has that shades, as I said, of the Roman Empire and what have you, and intrigue. So there's so much about this that just encapsulates what I love and what I like to know about in the world. So absolutely. And plus, I'm really just enjoying Diego Luna as a character, as an energy, as a human being in the world of Star Wars. And if you haven't seen that clip of him and Genevieve when he's asked if he stole anything off the Andor set after it was done shooting, and the kind of awkward, funny back and forth, it shows you, man, that guy just loves it. He just loves being a part of it. So yeah, that's my answer for sure. Yeah. All right. So
the absolute love he brings to Star Wars is really next level. Like, he might be the biggest fan of Star Wars that has ever gotten to appear in a Star Wars. He might be taking the cake on that.
Yeah, that's an actually excellent point for sure. Well, let's move on to Friday. And as I said, ladies and gentlemen, keep sending in your Streamlabs and Super Chats. It's pinned in the chat. And please hit a like on this video. I think there's only 30 or 40 likes. We got 150 or 160 you all. Please hit that like as well. All right, so let's go on to day 2 here. Friday. Laura, what stood out to you on Friday as you were doing any of the panels? What did you attend? And was your panel Friday or Thursday?
My panel was Friday. So okay. The panel about Rey, which was how Rey defined a new generation of Star Wars fans, was sort of headed up by Andres Cabrera, who gathered 5 women together to get on stage and just gush about Rey and Reylo and what could potentially be in the future for Rey as a character in Star Wars storytelling. So that was at 1:30 on Friday, which is great because I still got to make the Light and Magic panel first thing in the morning. We don't need to talk about it a lot because that docuseries is going to be on Disney Plus here at the end of July.
Right.
It'll be a 6-part behind the scenes of, all things Star Wars movies. It'll be great. But the Rey panel was shortly after. So when I made my way there, we're talking like tons of Rey cosplayers. Like there was so much love for that character in the room. It was so intense. And the fact that that was the 1 hour I spent in real close proximity to people, not wearing my mask. We didn't have to wear masks if we were speaking on a panel. And I don't think any of us ended up with COVID. So that was something, at least. Not a single one of them, I think, came down with it. But, there was a lot of love for The Last Jedi in that room. There was a lot of love for Rey and for Ben Solo and for Reylo in that room. And we got to spend a lot of time just kind of enjoying that. And, when we were kind of preparing for that panel, we talked about do we maybe not bring this up? Do we maybe keep the focus on Rey and kind of not bring Kylo Ren and Ben Solo into it at all? And, we kind of ultimately decided there's not really any way we could successfully do that and avoid the topic. And so we leaned into it. I'm glad we did, because overall in that room with those people, it was well received and there was a lot of love for it. So it was a great discussion about how, Rey is going to bring us into an even more inclusive fandom going forward, more so even though than it already was. And we're just going to keep snowballing that effect. And when we do that, we get things like the High Republic, where we're just becoming even more inclusive when you look at something like the High Republic. So there was a lot of talk about, where we could go in the future, if it's an animated series or we get to see her sort of starting her own Jedi temple. There was a lot of love for that. But the whole thing kind of came to a culmination for me as I was walking out of the panel. And I was standing next to Ace, and we were on our way out, and Mark Ellis approached us, and he was like, "You guys did so great. I got to actually see the whole thing." He's like, "I feel like a proud papa. You guys just nailed it." And I was just like, "Oh, that's so nice." So I was very, very honored to be asked to be a part of something like that. And we had a blast. It was so much fun. And I can't wait to hear about how your panel went on Sunday morning too, because that was my first time getting up on stage besides that, Star Wars Celebration 2019, where all I had to do was answer trivia questions. Right. This is the first time where I actually got to speak about things on a panel, and it was great. Was
there anything that came out of the interactions and the conversations and maybe some of the questions from the people who attended the panel that maybe give you something new to think about with Rey, or a new approach to Rey, or something you hadn't thought about before that you really kind of took away from that panel that was a fun thing to think about with the character of Rey?
Lacey, who was sitting next to me, was is and was always a Rey Kenobi person. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was really funny that there are still people who are into Rey Kenobi that still are buying into that theory, that believe it would have been the best way to go. Believe it definitely is still, it could potentially still be a thing. It just kind of cracked me up. So I appreciated the fact that, Ace was kind of the one person up there who was just like, "Hey man, I love The Rise of Skywalker. I will stand here and I will, defend it until my dying day." The rest of us were all very much Team Rey Nobody, Team Last Jedi. It surprised me, the sort of even among Rey fans, the sort of different opinions that were able to come together civilly in that environment. It was a beautiful thing. And there was one guy that came up to me right afterwards, and he showed me, he's like, part of one of my jobs is that I lead some of these celebrities around Disney, and I get to kind of show them, lead them around, kind of show them around, and they get to sort of see everything kind of from a step back and still get to enjoy themselves and not get mobbed. He's like, "I'm kind of one of the escorts that gets to do that." Mm-hmm. And he showed me a picture of him and Daisy Ridley, and he's just like, "I really wish she could see this, and she could see the absolute love that is in this room for this character," because it's when she's walking around and she gets to see all the little Rey cosplayers and seeing people interact with the Rey character in Galaxy's Edge, he's like, it brings her so much joy, and you can just see that. He's like, so I really I hope that she somehow finds out about this and can see this.
Yeah, yeah. I wish they'd made all the panels available for people to watch, because that's the frustrating part of this. We only had one person record the panel, but I'll put it on their Instagram, our panel rather, and I have no way to get that video off of Instagram in order to send that to my mom. So I wish they had recorded all the panels and had put them up somewhere for those of us to have. But it's great to hear you had such a great experience with that. And Rey is one of my favorite characters from the new versions of Star Wars, the new trilogy of Star Wars. And I just have a feeling that we are going to see Daisy Ridley back with this character a little bit down the road, kind of like with Hayden and all of that. Welcome everybody back. I think people will welcome Rey back and Finn back and Poe back when they want to come back and the stories make sense for them to come back. But there's no reason Rey shouldn't have a series herself. There's no reason Rey couldn't have a trilogy all about herself and what she's exploring, because I think Daisy Ridley's fantastic in that role. And I can already hear you Kylo people going, Kylo should get a series. Yes, but I would like to see a Rey series for sure, because I've seen guys dressed up, male kids dressed up as Rey, and so that's fascinating. That's when you've really crossed over, where regardless of gender, you're dressed up as one of the characters that you really love from Star Wars as a kid. So that's great.
Exactly. Yeah, and Andy mentioned it in the chat. Alex and Molly they did record it, so that Rey panel will be up on their channel at some point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. I will look forward to seeing that for sure. And also, second day, we also got a sequel that was announced to Jedi Fallen Order called Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The trailer was about a minute long. That looked pretty awesome. Laura, did you get a chance to see that footage at all on any of the social media?
I did finally sit down and watch the trailer, yes. And it did. I'm very excited because I know that people who played Jedi Fallen Order are absolutely head over heels for it. I never heard a single person be like, I don't know, it wasn't that great. Like, people just loved that game. And I love that, we've got Cal Kestis's like lightsaber is now an option, at Galaxy's Edge. And like, there's a lot of love for that character. So I'm really happy that he's back and that they are bringing back this, the next chapter of this story. It's one of those things on my list where I still need to sit down and like actually like watch all the cutscenes from the first game, because I'm just not a gamer. I'm not going to play it, but I love that people are excited about it, and I agree. The trailer looked awesome. Like, there are all of these games. I watch these trailers and I wish I was a gamer, but I'm not. I'm sorry.
What's your feeling on the Lego Star Wars stuff? Are you a fan of it? Do you think it's that has its place? Because I loved the C-3PO telling the story of Star Wars stuff through the Lego approach, and they announced Lego Summer Vacation here on the second day as well. Have you watched any of that stuff? Does that draw your interest in any way, shape, or form?
The video games, not so much, but like the Lego holiday special that we got, like the Halloween special that we got, like I love those. I love the humor, the like ridiculousness that they bring to, there's a lot of like, there's some ridicule, but it's like in a loving way. And I don't know how they make a really good way, a balance of it, and it's perfection. So I really enjoy it. I imagine the games are just as good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we had one from Lewis Berry, a super chat that came through, said, I hope we get Jin, Yoda, Cad, Ahsoka, and the Emperor. What, all of that in Kenobi in 3 episodes? That seems like a lot.
We have gotten some Yoda like audio, I think, a little bit. Like, so, I don't know. Can we cross that off? Maybe I don't need to see any more of Yoda. I'm not super pro Yoda, so I'm with a little bit that we got. But I like the rest of your list, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna get any of those people, to be honest with you, but maybe we shall see for sure. We got 3 episodes to go. Qui-Gon, absolutely. Qui-Gon, absolutely. Derek, I read your super chat. Did you miss us reading your super chat? We just talked about it. James Earl Jones, is that the one you're talking about? Because that's the only one I have here. If you sent another one, send it back in again, brother man, because I do not see it. So just to let you know. All right, let's move on to anything else on this day 2 that you want to touch on or talk about here, Laura, before we go on?
I missed the 20th anniversary celebration of Attack of the Clones, but I heard they streamed it, so it's another on my list to go back and watch. I want to hit on behind the audiobook, the making of an audio original Star Wars adventure, because this was an incredible panel, and I'm so glad that I was able to muster a little bit of energy to get back, because it was one of these 6:30 p.m. panels. But we got Mark Thompson, who narrates a lot of the Star Wars audiobooks.
Yeah.
And it was basically all the two producers, I think, that work on, actually making these audio originals, and then Kevin Scott, who's written 2 of the 3 audio originals and is one of the Luminous authors. And it was so fascinating to kind of get to hear them talk about how these things are made. And they actually did take a second, I think on 2 different occasions, to play a clip of the audio originals, the ones that have a full cast.
Wow.
They would play a clip of them, and they kind of, the cast talking back and forth, and you would hear like the final sort of product. And then they would play a version of it that didn't have the music or the sound effects in it. And it is amazing how much of a difference all of that makes and how dead it sounds without it. Despite how good the performances are. But they talked a lot about how, like, when they're making these audio originals, a lot of times they have a bunch of actors in a room together.
Yeah.
Actually, doing the narration and doing these voices and actually doing the performance together in a room and playing off of that energy from each other. But during COVID, they had to do a lot of them just one at a time. And you would just never know the difference because it all sounds amazing. And these audio originals are one of my favorite things in Star Wars media. I really enjoy them. So if you haven't got a chance to listen to Dooku Jedi Lost or Tempest Runner or the Dr. Aphra audio original, highly recommend, especially Dooku Jedi Lost is the first one, and it's great.
Right. And are you a big Dooku person? I feel like you're not a big Dooku person.
I wasn't until I listened to this audio original, and I was just like, oh, okay. Well, I kind of underestimated how cool this character. I mean, and I was a lot more into some of the side characters.
Right.
Sifo Dyas is a really interesting character, a lot more interesting than I ever thought that he was, despite the little just the little bit of name droppage that we got in in the prequels and even in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But Sifo Dyas's master, who her name was Lene Kastana, and she's one of the most interesting Star Wars characters ever. And her and Sifo Dyas would go around the galaxy and collect these dark side artifacts,
right,
so that they could archive them at the Jedi Temple. And it was just. It's just, she's a great character, and it was really interesting. So there are all these little characters that have popped up in these audio originals. I'm fingers crossed that someday any of them will come back in some form.
love that.
But yeah, you'd be surprised how it's just kind of crazy, how much work goes into these things and how much extra work it is to get these full casts together to make these audio originals. And it's totally worth it because they're awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Was Tales of the Jedi on Friday, or was that on Saturday? I feel like
I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday. It was one of the two. I think actually it was Saturday, because on Saturday, that was the day I was in the celebration stage, and I don't think I left until right at the end of the day. I just stayed put.
Yeah, and they had a number of panels there at the end, as you said, Laura. Near the end of the day, there was a number of things, there was a Hasbro panel, Sky Talkers panel, the Disney Park panel for sure that was there towards the tail end of the day. So there was so much if you wanted to be there and savor and experience. There was stuff on Star Tours. There was a celebration of that. So there was a lot that you could have stayed around, and if you were there at Celebration, people to take a look at. And of course, we would be remiss not to mention that Mark Riley and his crew celebrated their 25th anniversary of Star Wars Trilogy in 30 minutes, and they performed it there. And listen, it's been a few years since they did it. And so from what I understand, it took a lot of physical effort out of them. When I went up and saw them later, hung out with them later at the Marriott, the bar, a lot of conversations about how they were a little long in the tooth to do some of the things that they did. So they had to adapt and kind of adjust for the stage. But it played so well, and everybody loved it. So shout out to them. And I think they're still doing it in the Valley at the Falcon Theater, I think, there in North Hollywood. So if you guys want to see that, you live in LA or live near LA, you can go see Riley and his crew doing that. And I think they're trying to kick around the idea of doing it in 15 minutes, which I don't know how you do that. So that was great to hear that they had such a great time performing it and apparently they had turned people away. That's how many people really wanted to see it. So that's all positive. So I just want to give him a shout out there. Because I know Mark worked hard on that show, bringing it back with everybody else. So, Ryan Nelson's in here. What's up, Ryan? He said, "Yeah, Star Wars in 30 minutes was excellent." So there you go. And Ryan, you and I, we had a great conversation. Ryan and I for about 25 minutes about everything that's going on in Ryan's life. Got nothing but love for Ryan and very happy for everything he's got going on. All right, let's move on to Saturday, Laura. This is your day, so I will sit back and let you take it away. Please tell us about the Mandalorian panel. I sadly was a Liverpool fan, so I was watching my team play in the Champions League final instead of going to this Mandalorian panel. I should have gone to the panel because we lost. So please tell me about the panel and tell everybody here how that Mandalorian panel was for you with Ahsoka and the footage we got.
All right, so it was hosted by Ash Crossan. So you can imagine like just the love in the room, like just with that alone, the enthusiasm that she brings was just everything. So they brought out Filoni and Favreau, who kind of led the whole thing, and it was mostly Filoni kind of leaning over, like giving people death stares on the panel, being like, "Please don't say too much." And they all, I think, obeyed. I think everybody did a good job of kind of keeping it, not too many reveals actually during the panel itself. But Pedro Pascal, Lateef Crowder, and Brennan Wayne, the three men that it takes to bring Din Djarin to life, were all there on stage.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they brought up Giancarlo Esposito, Emily Swallow, and Carl Weathers. There was a lot of Mandalorian talk, I think, for a good chunk of like probably the first half or so of the panel, talking a little bit about like what we can expect from season 3. Giancarlo Esposito is directing, I think, at least one episode of season 3. And they did reveal that it'll be out in February. So that's where we finally learned that. Tamora Morrison came out to the Book of Boba Fett theme song, which was just perfect. He now has walk-on music for the rest of his life. And I love that for him. Like it was amazing. They brought Katie Sackhoff out. And I'm glad they did, because we got to hear a little bit from her about, what it's like kind of being back around the convention circuit, because this is a scene that she's very familiar with, having been on Battlestar Galactica. So she seemed very enthusiastic about being back. And then they brought out Rosario Dawson and later Natasha Lubordizzo, and Chopper made an appearance. And at that moment, I was like, oh no, you're not gonna show. Maybe they're going to show. No, they're not going to. There's no way. I didn't think it was going to happen. And then it happened. And then Grogu was also on the stage. They had a puppet out there that, was very, very cute and very interactive as he was sitting there making noise and moving around. And it was cute. So I want to talk about the Mandalorian footage if we can, because it was, I don't have any notes actually on what we saw on Saturday that was in addition to what we saw on Thursday. I do have notes on everything we saw on Thursday. I want to say we got like an extra 30 to 60 seconds of content on Saturday.
Okay.
And I just don't remember a ton of what that was. And I'm sure there are pirated versions of it all over the internet, but I have not seen them. I have seen one of what came out on Thursday. So we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
But really, I essentially want to talk about how, there was a lot of Bo-Katan in that footage, like a lot more than I would have thought. She's going to clearly be like a huge character in season 3, which I'm very happy about. And I think actually one of the things that struck me as the most interesting was how much one-on-one time I think we're going to get between Bo-Katan and Grogu. I think there's a period of time where Din Djarin's going to be leaving him with her for whatever amount of time. But, she at one point looks at Grogu in the footage and says, do you think your dad was the only Mandalorian? And that's how the Thursday coverage ends, is with that one line. Saturday, then we got more, which is great. There'll definitely be more armor in season 3. She had a big presence in the footage that we saw too. They seem to be expanding Grogu's repertoire of sound. He was making some sort of new noises, which was very cute in the season 3 footage we saw. And I think in season 2 it was that the armor had told Din Djarin, like, you can be redeemed for removing your helmet if you visit the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore. And in this footage he kind of tells somebody, that's where I'm headed, basically. And then we get to see a lot of footage of what looks like Sundari and the Sundari Royal Palace on Mandalore. So we see Bo-Katan on the throne. In Sundari, and it is amazing. And all those amazing animated sequences that we got in Clone Wars season 7, like that great duel between Ahsoka and Maul, we see all of that, like the photo real version of that, in this footage. So that's all going to be in live action in season 3, which is just so exciting, because those sets, even in animated form, were so cool and so intriguing. It's like all those people who were watching the Clone Wars back in like the late 2000s, I'm like, think about those people. They get to like see that like in on screen, like photo real, like it's gonna be, I'm so excited for them. But that was really great. You know, there's a couple quick shots of like quacking monkey lizards, and
Yeah.
Dr. Pershing shows up, and the X-Wing pilot Carson Tevez, and a couple of those quick shots. So like I said, I really hope that they release this footage publicly at some point so I don't have to keep watching the pirated version. But it really was exciting getting a feel for what we're going to get in season 3. I just can't believe that's so far away. I mean, the fact that it's like almost a year away still, like that just feels so crazy. But it looks like it's done. Like, can you show us now?
That's a great point. No, you know, the stuff that the vibe I got when we saw it on Thursday was this is Game of Thrones, The Mandalorian, and that's what it felt like to me. It felt like it's going to the next level of epicness in its expanse and its approach. This is no longer Lone Wolf and Cub. This is now a bigger adventure that they're going on. And yeah, Katie Sackhoff came out on Thursday and said, "You guys think?" What'd she say? She said something like, "You guys ain't getting rid of me. I've got some unfinished business in season 3." That's exactly what she said as she walked out to let us know exactly what her role is going to be here. And it's what's so funny too. What struck me about the footage is, you know, the first 2 seasons was all about the Mandalorian protecting Grogu, trying to get Grogu to his people, trying to figure out what's next for Grogu. But now Grogu coming back and being a part of what saved them at the end there of Mandalorian season 2, it's clear. Oh, sorry. It's clear that this is no longer about saving Grogu. This season is about saving the Mandalorian and him saving himself, going to the waters of Mandalore in essence, and trying to be purified. And the armor, we see the armorer say to him, "You took off your mask willingly. You are excommunicated from this sect of you're no longer a Mandalorian," is what she says to him. And so this is the journey that he's on. So Grogu is no longer the sidekick. Grogu is now a full-fledged character. So it's about him trying to figure out how to be whole. When we were doing that for 2 seasons of the Grogu, now we're shifting the focus of the Mandalorian. And that's where I think is going to be fascinating to see what that process is like. And is Bo-Katan helping him so that she can get this battle and get that Darksaber back? Because you said she's sitting in that throne, and it feels like the Iron Throne where there's no one in the room. It's dark as hell. She looks depressed as hell, and it's because she doesn't have the Darksaber and she can't lead her people. So there's so much, plus Dr. Pershing, plus all of that. So I'm very fascinated. I mean, one Salacious B. Crumb is enough. You got a whole tree full of them? No, thanks. So it's going to be, all of it is going to be really fascinating to see what we're going to get in the new worlds and the new locations that we're going in this show. And dare I say this, season 3 feels like no longer like enemy of the week. It feels much more connected into an overall story. And I think that's the vibe I got out of it. What about you, Laura? What vibe did you get coming out of that footage?
I think Game of Thrones is a really accurate description of what we can expect. But, you know, the thing about Game of Thrones is how grounded it is. And it's like, you know, Star Wars is anything but grounded. Like we had footage of like Mandalorians like dropping out of the sky with their jetpacks.
True. Very true. Yes, we did. Yeah.
But I am 100% on board for like the sort of Game of Thrones feel. I mean, like the energy that like Bo-Katan brings to this show. Like I love that she's back in it. That was the one shirt I needed to get at the celebration store during this trip, and somebody got it for me, thank God. But yes, I'm very excited to get more Bo-Katan in season 3 and watch this sort of story play out between, you know, what are we going to do with the Darksaber, or what's going to ultimately happen with that? Is she going to end up having to duel Din Djarin for it again? Like, are they going to end up teaming up? Like, how is this going to play out? I can't wait.
Right. And how's the Moff going to play into all of this? How is the Sith's going to play into, like, where are they going with all of this? So there's a lot here. And as you said, the armorer, what is her role, because it looks more expansive? What is her role other than excommunicating him? Is he going to have to fight her at some point down the road as well? There's a lot of pieces of this puzzle yet to be seen for season 3, but I was excited coming out of all that footage. So let's move to Ahsoka, please.
We have to move to Ahsoka because I got to watch the Ahsoka footage in a room with a bunch of my friends who are now unfortunately partially deaf, because the way I screamed when that footage came on, I don't even feel bad. I'm not even sorry. Like, get a hearing aid. It's not my problem anymore. Like, I could not be contained in that setting, and you could not ask me to do that. So the fact that they had only been filming Ahsoka for 3 weeks, Rosario Dawson said they started filming on her birthday, May 9th.
Wow.
And that was all, the fact that somebody must have stayed up all night, multiple people staying up all night to make sure that we got to see that at that panel. Find those people and thank them and give them a raise or something, because they deserve everything in the world. Because the fact that we got, and I know it was just from behind, we don't know who's playing her, but the fact that we got my favorite character probably in all of Star Wars, Harrison Dula, in live action, in the Ahsoka footage, as much excitement as I had for that show before I knew for sure that Hera was going to be, like, I just completely, like, hit the ceiling. I could not even fathom what I was about to see. And the fact that we got the hint, like Chopper rolled out on stage. No, there's no way we're going to see it. And then we did. And like Hera could very well have been like a CGI character in that footage. I mean, it was that quick. Like who even knows if they've even got her on, on set yet. And I don't even care. Because it meant everything to me to get to see her in live action. And, like even just knowing that, the heart of the Ghost crew in Star Wars Rebels, who really didn't get a lot of like character centric episodes about her. And I don't expect her to in Ahsoka either. But the fact that, she's gone on to appear in some novels and in the Lego specials and in Star Wars Squadrons, even the fact that we're going to get her in live action, it's everything. And I'm very, very excited. So if that had been the only like image they had shown at that panel, like not even footage, like just that would have been enough. That would have been all I needed.
What can you say? How long was the footage? You don't have to go into specifics, but what can you say about the footage? What was it teasing for what we're going to see in this series?
I want to say it was about a minute long, and it was just quick flashes. It's like really hard to say exactly even what the feel of the show was going to be, because I'm not even sure they really communicated that all that clearly from what we saw. It was a lot of sort of just kind of quick flashes, like, we're fading in and fading out for each of them, trying to make them each as long as the possible. And it was just insane. It was insane. I mean, like, it was the most incredible thing. I mean, a lot of it was just, the last shot was Ahsoka like pulling her hood down and just like looking up. And I'm just like, this is all I need. This is all I need in this life to be happy. I don't need anything else. I'm all set. Like,
what about Sabine? Did we see Sabine in action in this trailer? Did you see Sabine?
So I need to correct myself. The last shot of the footage was actually from the Star Wars Rebels finale, the cave painting that Sabine does. It's the shot of that. And then you see it's the exact same artwork. Like, it's the same style and everything. Mm-hmm. And you see live action Sabine walk up and just stare at it from behind. Wow. So you didn't hear her. I don't think you actually hear anybody speak maybe in the footage. I don't remember for sure, but that was the last piece of it, was just her looking at it. And I just like, you guys, I just like lost my mind. I lost my mind. Like, I can't even.
Well, two things. One, did they speak about what the series is going to be about? A lot of speculation about Ezra, and certainly Mina Masood is making the most of it with his tweets on Twitter. Did they announce that they are going after Ezra? That this is, and of course they had mentioned Thrawn. So did they give more information about what this series is going to entail?
Not really, unfortunately. I think somebody did ask, like somebody like shouted from the audience, like, "Where's Ezra?" which was great. I mean, I think I remember Dave Filoni saying something like, the great thing about that question really is that I know the answer, was like something about those lines. And like, we just didn't get anything beyond that. Like, they're really keeping it under wraps. And honestly, I kind of hope that they continue to be successful in that, because I just think to be able to all of us experience it at one time without, all of the leaks, like we're getting a lot of casting leaks, and they admitted that. They're like, we've never made a casting announcement. All of these things just leak and there's not much we can do about it. And I'm like, and that's fine. But I'm just like, the fact that they were able to keep things like Leia leaked in Kenobi the fact that she was going to be in it, but the fact that, you know, that wasn't widespread information, I think is a huge accomplishment.
Right.
The fact that they kept Grogu secret as long as they did was a huge accomplishment. So I'm like, they have the ability to do these things and to kind of keep them under wraps. And I just want to be able to like experience all of that, like with all the Star Wars Rebels fans at the same time, you know, like I'm kind of hoping that they can keep most of it locked down.
Okay.
And if I don't see anything else until it airs, that's fine. But man, getting to see that, like, I'm like, that's another, I'm just release it to everybody. Let everybody see it. Like, oh, come on, man.
Now, I know you only saw her from behind, but are your speculation days over on Harrison Dula? Is it Mary Elizabeth Winstead? Did you sense?
I that's just my guess. I didn't get any sense at all of who's playing her. I know that it's not Vanessa Marshall. Sadly, she did admit on Instagram a couple days ago that it is not, in fact, her. Yeah. And I would have loved to have seen that. I mean, the fact that she did the mocap performance and the voice in Star Wars Squadrons, I had hoped it would be a possibility, but you know, I'll take it. I was like looking through Mary Elizabeth Winstead's IMDb, and I'm just like, all right, I need to watch everything she's ever been in, and I need to talk myself into loving this because I need to just love the show. I have no other option other than to love this performance for what it is and just accept that it's not Vanessa Marshall.
She's a good actress. She's a good
She is.
actor.
I know, but the voice isn't like, it's not like perfect. It's close enough. It's close and it's good, and it's not exactly perfect. And I just wish it was. But I'm like, if I can just sit and watch a bunch of her movies and just like get myself in the zone for it, I'll be much more accepting of it.
You are watching Laura the Nerd in the wild now, ladies and gentlemen. You see the mannerisms and the actions. There's like the filters are down. She's giving you her honest truth in this situation. Start with Scott Pilgrim and go from there. She's great. The less said about Kate on Netflix, the better. But you know, she's a good actress.
Okay, because that was on my list. I was like, oh, I kind of want to watch this movie. I've seen Birds of Prey. She's great in Birds of Prey. Rewatch.
She's good in Birds of Prey. Yeah, actually. So Kate is fun, but I don't know if it. You know, I preferred Gunpowder Milkshake myself. But anything else on that panel or in that panel that you want to talk about or that got released or announced that was big news to you?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covered it. You know, the fact that we got what we got was all a surprise. I would have never expected to see anything from Ahsoka because I knew that they had just started filming. That news came out a while back. And so I will take what I can get and I will just be riding the high until we see more.
Okay, sounds good. We had 3 Streamlabs that came through here. Thank you all so much. You know, we're close to wrapping up the show. So if you want to get your questions or thoughts or comments in, do it now. Ryan Nelson sent in. Thank you, Ryan. He said it was at Celebration. The Tales of the Jedi panel blew my mind. Saw an entire finished episode. The most beautiful Star Wars animation, yet floored by it. We'll get a open seasons related Dooku episode. Will we get a open seasons related Dooku episode? What do you think, Laura, after what we spoke about Dooku earlier?
You know, that was like such an amazing connection. The fact that I went to that like audio panel where we talked so much about Dooku Jedi Lost. And then we got that news that like, oh yeah, you're going to get like 3 whole episodes about Dooku. I'm just like, I'm really hoping that they will like take that story of Dooku Jedi Lost and build on it. And it won't just be them completely disregarding that for whatever reason, because it's not something we've seen on screen. Like I hope they build on, because what they laid down in the foundation there about his past was really great. I was in that panel and we did get to see the full on finished episode about Ahsoka's mom, essentially, played by Jeannie Nagavankar, and it was great. It was beautiful. It was different than, you know, like what we're used to kind of seeing. It was a very sort of different animation feel, like still the sort of 3D animation we're used to with the Clone Wars, but different in some weird way I can't explain, put into words. But it was a great story, and it was about, I want to say 10-ish minutes. So I think all of them are going to be around that time period, just these shorts. And hearing Dave Filoni talk about how, you know, he was just like taking an airplane back and forth working on Star Wars Rebels and just drawing on napkins these ideas for these little standalone stories he wanted to do. And that's how this came about. And that's amazing to me. The fact that he was able to somehow still make that happen and make it come to fruition to this final project we got to see in 2022 on screen. It's great.
Running things It takes a lot out of you. All your somewhat downtime is spent working on another project. You have no downtime. It's crazy. People want certain people to run certain things, but they don't understand how much time commitment that actually is. So we'll see what the end results are for a lot of these things that they're working on right now. Stan Hemphill is in here. Thank you, Stan. Says, shout out to you, John, specifically. You never shy away from discussing diversity in Star Wars or anything for that matter. As a black man and huge Star Wars fan, I'm loving what's happening with representation. Laura, you rock. There you go. From Stan.
Thank you, Stan.
Yeah, thank you, Stan. And we're going to talk about my panel in just a few minutes. But yes, absolutely, Stan. Thank you so much for saying that. I get a lot of crap for it sometimes in certain sections, certain quarters, but I keep doing that because I think it's important. And when we see it in the way that Star Wars is doing it, it makes so many of us smile because this is what we've been fighting for vocally for so long or on social media for so long. And when we see properties and franchises that understand how to do it correctly, it so means a lot and hopefully sets an example and a blueprint for other franchises to follow. And Genghis Khan, he sent in something, Genghis, saying, I'm so glad they showed the mural because I knew it was being recreated about a month ago. And I thought, how am I going to keep quiet about this? Oh, yeah, Laura, what do you think of that?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know how. The question of how you kept quiet about it is like, I would never have been successful. This is why nobody's allowed to tell me anything, and that I have to like avoid leaks at all costs when I can, because I'm just like, I'll tell everybody if I find out. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Wow. Oh.
It was great to see. It certainly was great to see for sure. All right, those are all the Streamlabs here. Let's move on to Sunday as we're wrapping things up here as we discuss Celebration. If you haven't hit a like on this video, do so now. Got 150 of you hanging out with us still, so please make sure you hit that like button. And if you're watching later, leave a comment down below as well. And let us know what you thought about what happened at Star Wars Celebration and what stood out to you. So Sunday was a little more relaxed, I think, Laura, as these things tend to be. But we did get the Bad Batch panel, which I couldn't go to because I was on my own panel. But I heard that it was a pretty cool panel. And I think they did a reading with all the actors there. And then later they dropped the teaser trailer for season 2 of the Bad Batch, which is coming very soon. So were you able to go to this panel? What do you think about everything that was released around this panel?
Yes, I was there. They did do the sort of staged reading where D. Bradley Baker essentially just seamlessly slipped from one Bad Batch member to the other. It's crazy to watch. It really is. And so that was really fun to see. We did see the trailer at the end of the panel, but we also saw like maybe it was like a 5-minute-ish clip.
Wow.
That I would guess was from the first episode of season 2. They did make it very clear, like Omega has been aged up. We knew that was going to be the case. I think that information came out a while back. It's not clear how much. I would say at least 2 years, but kind of hard to say. One thing that I thought was sort of interesting, and I could be wrong, and maybe it's just, the brightness and resolution and everything of various screens that I've watched the Bad Batch on, but I think they may have listened to some of the criticism of season 1, which is that Omega appeared to be very Caucasian looking. And if she is a clone of Jango Fett, she should not appear that way. Right. And it appears I feel like she did maybe have a darker complexion in what we saw in the trailer and in this footage, which is a good thing, I think, that they at least are coming around to that idea, because it was a good point. It wasn't something that I would have thought of or would have brought up, but I'm glad that other people did, because clearly somebody listened. I think it's nothing but a good thing. But I need to go back and like rewatch the trailer, because after everything we saw and everything we took in, I'm just like, I just haven't been able to like sit back and go back and and like recover and like go back and take everything in and take notes and be like, okay, like I still have some recovering time to do from Celebration. But what did you think from what you saw or what came out since then?
First of all, I was jealous. Look, I was happy to do our panel. Very much thought it was an important panel to be a part of. I was very honored to be a part of it. But missing out on Bad Batch season 2, Laura, you know how much I love Bad Batch. So these are my boys. And so to not be able to be there to see that, I think kind of was a tough one for me. But then when they released the trailer, I was very happy with what I saw. And did I see Commander Cody? I think I did. seeing everybody back here, Wrecker, Tech, all of Hunter, all of them back with Omega. It was and an older Omega. The armor has changed on them as well, and we see from the trailer that they are moving closer to taking part in the rebellion. And so that's going to be so much fun to see here in the second season for sure. You know, Sid trying to say, why don't you guys just be mercenaries? And they're like, no, we're something else is calling us. And so I'm wondering how they're going to get to that point. And certainly it looks like Omega is essentially like a co-leader of this, of the Bad Batch. Now we see her being much more, how can I say this? Much more in control, much more aware of things, much more confident throughout the quick 1 minute we got. So I loved that overall. And what else? I think that's it. And I was just jealous that I couldn't be in the room as they did a version of the show. They're doing a live read, which would have been awesome. And I heard that they told D we can take breaks in between the characters. He's like, no, let it roll. I can switch back and forth, no problem. And he apparently did that. And the great ones did. The great ones.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to hear about the Latinx panel that happened that morning, and you know, the thing that kept you from from the Bad Batch. But I heard everything went really well at that panel, so let's hear it.
Yeah, it was a fantastic panel. What a great crew of people that we had on that panel. Of course, Ace Cabrera bringing all us Latinos of different backgrounds, different genders, different shades, different sexual orientations, all of us together on that stage there, and having some fun. Katrina was on there, Danny Fernandez, Hector Navarro, Dom, all of us on there with Ace, as you discovered yourself, ably guiding us to these through these questions that we wanted to talk about and answer when it came to Latinx representation in Star Wars. And it was great. And the panel initially started out with, like, I don't know, 50, 60 people in the room, and then grew from there, which I was very happy to see more people coming in and listening to us.
Cool.
And the questions we got were really great. We had a lot of people of color there who were really appreciating the conversations we were having. Some great talk about, like, okay, this is a great moment. All right, what's the next step for us? And really a lot of love thrown Star Wars way for how they've handled the integration of Latinos into Star Wars in the multiple franchise and the multiple branches of the franchise, like Ahsoka, like Andor, like the sequel trilogy, like the Mandalorian, and other, but the Martez sisters, things of that nature. All of that, the family and resistance, the Latino family and resistance. So all of that was talked about, and the Vanity Fair cover and what that meant for a lot of us to see 3 Latinos on the cover there, 3 Latinx people, shall I say, on the cover there. It meant so much to us. So great conversation, and talking about representation and talking about what we need to do as well to support that representation as Latinos, which means showing up for this stuff, supporting this stuff, tweeting about this stuff, reviewing this stuff, all of that. So it was a very good conversation, led very ably by Ace for sure.
That's awesome. I love that it ended with like a mission of what you had to leave with and what you had to do next. Like that's really great. That's perfect. And yes, Ace, I'm sure, was just, you know, the best at what he does. So I'm glad that he was the person that put that together and led you all through it. And it sounds like it went really well. So that's awesome. Congrats.
I think we said at the end too. Thanks, Laura. It's very kind of you. I think the thing we said at the end, I think Danny said it actually is, or maybe Katrina did, where she said, one of them said, this should have been on a main stage panel. This should have been in a bigger room at a better time. And I think they were 100% right. We should have, even if it was sacrificing me being on the panel so they could bring in people with bigger followings or whatever, or Latino, it would have been great to have it on a bigger scale, so that it's recognized in a more powerful way. And hopefully next year it will be on a bigger scale in a bigger situation, as Latinos deserve. Not the Sunday against Bad Batch. We should have been at a better time slot so we can talk about this, and more people who are the people we're trying to get to understand why this is important could have come to the panel and been a part of the panel, and gotten some education out of that, which I think would have been a great thing, or some knowledge, maybe not education.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's hard. It was the podcast stage, right? Is that where you guys were? Yeah, that's a tough stage to be on. I'm like, the Pink Milk guys were on that, and they sold out that room too. And I think they put Star Wars Explained up there. And I'm just like, there's a lot of these that are, you're putting these these shows that shouldn't have to compete against these bigger
Yeah.
panels having to compete against the bigger ones that are on the celebration stage, and that's tough.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's something that, like, maybe if there's like a survey or something ReedPop puts out after the fact, that some of that feedback can get back to them at some point.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be getting back to them. That's for sure. As we go,
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, as we go into next year, for sure. So we got some super chats. Oh, and yeah, shout out to everybody: Danny Fernandez, Hector Navarro, Katrina, and Dom. All of them with fantastic points of views. I mean, just really for me, coming away from the panel, I came away with so much more knowledge about their approaches, their points of views, what matters to them in Star Wars, and it was so great to see that. I love that 5 different people from 5 different representation avenues in the Latino world were there to talk about it. So it was great. Lewis Barry says, in season 3, hope we get Mace, Luke, Ben, Migs, and Boba. Lewis Barry just has a list of people he wants to see in everything. I find this fascinating.
Indeed. So this is Mandalorian season 3, Mace Windu. I wonder what he would be like in this time period. Yeah. Imagine a Mace Windu Luke Skywalker interaction. Like, that bends my brain a little bit in a way where I'm just like, wait, how? No, yes, could happen.
Yeah. I see people wanting Mason Kenobi, wanting Samuel L. Jackson to make an appearance in Kenobi. That would bend my mind. I'd be like, what? Because you have to de-age. Well, look, Sam looks great. Don't get me wrong, Sam looks great, but still, it would be very interesting to see what would we see, because in the second episode, having Tamora Morrison show up as one of the former clones there begging for money, that was a rough situation. So what would Mace Windu do in a Kenobi episode? I wonder. Could be very, very curious.
Indeed.
Especially if Vader's there too. Lewis Berry also says should have had Yoda training Obi to talk to Force Ghost. I don't know, mate. Well, I think we should let that be. Like, let Kenobi find his way to it. If you have Yoda training him, then it kind of makes it easier. And the whole point of the series is that Kenobi has to do the work to get back into the fight. And so if Yoda's helping him, it's kind of a shortcut if Yoda's helping him, in my opinion.
Yeah, like Yoda should have told him, like, in Revenge of the Sith, like, how to go about that. It's like, now we're 10 years later. We need to be like doing the work to actually make that happen.
Exactly.
So I hear you.
Exactly. All right. Well, that was the entire celebration there, the review, our reactions to everything and our experiences, everything. So, Laura, you stayed one extra day. Did you do anything extra? Was there any meetups with Star Wars people? Was there anything that was fun? Any posts? Did you go to the closing ceremonies, or did you go to the Mandalorian exhibit or experience there?
I did make it to the Mandalorian exhibit. Nice. I made it to Star Wars Visions on Sunday too, which was great. I love that we got, that announcement of like all of the new countries that are going to be represented, those new studios that are going to be coming to volume 2 of Star Wars Visions. So that was great. On Sunday night, my plan basically was to like go back to my room and decompress after I had lunch with you. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to sneak back to the convention. I'm going to just do one last attempt to try and get into that Mandalorian exhibit, because I heard nothing but good things about it and really wanted to get to see it. And I'm glad that I went back, because there's, a bunch of people kind of standing around, and I had asked, I was like, where's the standby line for this? What are all these people doing? They're like, there's not really a line. These people are just kind of all waiting, hoping that they can get in. And so I just kind of planted myself there for a few minutes. I was like, I'm going to give this 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go back to my room. Like, I'm not just going to like stand here. Like, I'm so tired of waiting in lines. It's been 4 days of nothing but lines. But I'm glad that I waited, because I mean, like, it took no time at all. Like, some group had a reservation or whatever was just like, is there any like, individual, like single person that wants to join our group? We've got one spot open. And I stepped back. I'm like, I just got here. There's clearly people who have been waiting for a while, and nobody jumped at it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go. So I snuck in with this group of people who were all originally from Wisconsin and did not appreciate the fact that I was from Chicago. I got a lot of flack about a sports team I don't even cheer for. So it was an adventure, but they were very kind and very funny. And I enjoyed getting to hang out with them in line while we all waited to get into the exhibit. And then the exhibit itself was great. It was very cool. I mean, lots of like costumes and props, and the fact that they had like a whole ass N1 there with Baby Yoda in it. Like, it was, it was crazy. It was great. I'm glad that I made it in, just that last minute little thing.
Oh my God. Listen, that's so great that they were giving you shit. You're like, I don't even watch sport. I'm not a Bears fan.
I don't care.
Oh, Packers fans. Well, there you go. There we go. That's Star Wars Celebration. Really great experience. So fun to meet Laura for the first time in person and have a great lunch talking about all of that. And doing the show here today. It was thank you to everybody who has joined us. We're back at over 150 people joining us right now. As we wrap up, please remember to hit that like button. We got 119 likes. Get us to 150 likes as we wrap up. If you haven't moved your cursor over there and hit that thumbs up button. Any final words, Laura, as we wrap up? Anything else we need to be covering or talking about here?
Nope. I will see you in London, 100%. If not before, but I will see you at least in London for sure.
Absolutely, yes. And guys, the other news we got real quick, Kathleen Kennedy saying that Taika Waititi's film is on course, and it came out that that's being shot in Los Angeles, apparently. And also that Rian Johnson's trilogy is a little bit on the back burner. So we shall see. I mean, I've been saying that we're never going to get it, but I'm slowly changing my mind that maybe we'll get it 10, 15 years from now. I can't imagine it'll come anytime soon. But Kathleen Kennedy, doing the press row, said that they're very much still focused on getting to the movies. They just want to figure out what it is they're going to do next. So yeah, I think that's the best we got there. So, all right, let's get on out of here. Laura Kelly, thanks so much for taking the Sunday night to hang out with us and have a fun conversation on the show. Please let people know where they can find you and all you've got going on.
Sure, come find me on Twitter. My ad is @shutup_Laura. I'm at the same handle on Instagram, and the show that I host with my friend Alice, a podcast, is called Forced Toast to Star Wars Happy Hour. We will have our own new episode out sometime later this week. Usually they come out on Tuesdays. This week, Tuesday's not going to happen. But we did do a whole recap and rundown of Star Wars Celebration and the first 3 episodes of Kenobi. Nice. And that just sucked up our entire very long discussion this morning. So that episode will be out later this week. Look out for that.
Right on, right on. Lewis Barry, one last one, says favorites, Stranger Things season 4, volume 1 episode. Mine is Dear Billy. We're halfway through the finale for this section of the shows, season, episode 7. So I can't say yet. Laura, have you seen all 7 episodes?
I haven't watched it at all yet. I'll get to it. I have not watched. I'm sorry. I haven't watched it at all. I've heard nothing but good things. I heard it's very dark this season, but I'm excited to dive into it at some point soon.
And don't let the runtimes intimidate you. They go like that because they really do fill it with a lot. Because that was my hesitation. I was like, man, I just did Celebration. I'm covering Kenobi. I got all this other stuff. I do not want to dive into Stranger Things, but it's going by quick. So I would highly recommend it to everybody. So, but yes, Dear Billy is a fantastic episode. Sadie Sink, a lot of people think she deserves an Emmy, but I will say David Harbour's monologue in the prison about 11, just as good as Sadie Sink's monologue. I'm just throwing it out there for those of you who've seen all 7 episodes. As for me, you can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The Rocha, The Outlaw Nation on Twitch. And remember, down below, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button so you see we're dropping all the content we do on all the shows on the Outlaw Nation. We got a couple of new announcements coming soon. Just be patient. They'll be coming very soon. I think some of you are going to really, really enjoy. So that's part of growing the Outlaw Nation. So come be a part of it by subscribing and hitting that bell button. Hit a like on this video, leave a comment, and share it on your social media with our hashtag, The Jedi Way, so more people can come aboard and hang out with us as we do this show every 2 weeks. All right, y'all be well. Take care of yourselves. And Laura, what do we have to tell them?
We always have to tell them to remember that your focus determines your reality.